Hello, I'm Andrew Hara, the host of the Bomb Squad. I wanted to tell you about my movies. All are available on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one is a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. Finally, the documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, a family of fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Check out Tubi to watch all my films. Finally, The Empty Space, winner of multiple awards, including the Sacramento Horror Film Festival's Best of the Fest, is a cosmic horror about Amy Andrews, who's dealing with anxiety and depression after a violent attack that killed her husband. As she tries to find herself, she starts to lose her grasp on reality. Or could it be something much more sinister? The Empty Space is full of twists and turns, with Grace DeWilder of Rue Morgue magazine calling it a powerful film full of excellent performances by practically every cast member. All of Andrew Hada's movies are available to rent or buy on streaming services such as Tubi, Amazon, and many other places. We hope that you help support us by watching these films. Now, let's start the Bomb Squad. Welcome, everyone, and I do mean everyone based on our subscriber jump, to the Bomb Squad podcast, where we talk about movies that are either underappreciated or underrated. I was going to say
Yeah.
overrated. I don't even know what our own podcast is about. Anyway, welcome to the podcast. And today we have a special episode. So, when we started this podcast, I was like, if we hit certain numbers, we'll do certain episodes, you know? And like once we get paid, once we start making money off of this, that's when we'll do Fast and Furious franchise. So if you want to see a Fast and Furious franchise, that's on you guys. But we did hit 1,000 subscribers, and we kind of like had hit 250, and so we did Chappie. But then we hit 1,000, and so we're gonna do this one. Then we had like a bunch, so we're probably just gonna do a couple of special ones just for fun. But this is one that I like. This is one of the reasons that we made the podcast is for this episode, so we could talk about this movie. And like I said last time, I remember the first time I saw this movie, I like rented it because it got terrible reviews, maybe some of the worst ever. And I was like, oh well, it can't be that bad. And I like the actors, so then I watched it, and I immediately caught Joshua Whitney Epp, who you can see right there. And I was like, hey man, you need to come over and watch this 3 hour movie with me. And then we watched it again. And by the way, we weren't on drugs at the time. We might have been. I don't remember. But the point was, we saw one of our favorite movies of all time. So today on the Bomb Squad, we're talking about the Americana history epic called
Mhm.
Southland Tales from 2006, directed by Richard Kelly. I just realized that William went last time. Josh, you're going to be up.
Oh
Directed
yeah,
and
describe
written
this one.
by Richard Kelly. It stars Dwayne Johnson, not The Rock, because this was the first time he took that off. It stars Sarah Michelle Gellar. It stars Sean William Scott. It stars the most famous actor of all time, winner of multiple awards, I assume. It stars John Lovitz in
Oh
the
yeah,
You could have
major
said like 15
role.
names there and it would have been.
Oh,
yeah.
I know
Wallace
what you were
Shawn.
thinking. I know what you were thinking. Does this movie have Christopher Lambert? Oh, it does. Does this movie have Bai Ling playing a dancing girl who's a
It does.
scientist, maybe? You know it does. So anyway, this movie has everyone. Amy Fowler shows up to get murdered. Oh yeah, I completely forgot about
Amy
Justin
Poehler. By
Amy
just
Poehler.
correct. Amy Poehler.
Yeah.
Not Amy
And
Fowler.
also, it stars. Oh yeah, by the way, you're like, oh well, it definitely doesn't have Kevin Smith in it wearing a fat suit for some reason. Well, guess what?
and
It's in here.
Prometheus style old age makeup.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mandy Moore, the
Oh
best.
yeah, Mandy
Anyway, we're
Moore.
talking about
Yeah.
Southland Tales. This movie famously got like a 15-minute boo at Cannes. And
Yeah.
like it wasn't. It was like it's already 2.5 hours. It was like 4 hours at the time. We'll also be talking about the comic book that came with it. But Josh, before we get into this movie, why don't you tell us? Why don't you tell us one of those Southland tales?
I can. Um, this movie is kind of about everything. It's about
Yeah.
every facet of post 9/11 life. It's like pop culture, sexuality, religion, the war. Um, I
Social
don't know.
media,
Yeah. So
pornography,
cops, racist
racism,
cops.
Yeah.
Um,
bad poetry,
Corporate greed,
John
it's
Lovitz,
Marxism,
everybody,
the
capitalism.
surprisingly
drugs.
large amount of SNL cast members that are in this movie.
Yeah.
Well, and I do
Um,
want to. Okay, so this movie stars Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and as everyone on their podcast knows from our most watched episode, we already knew Dwayne the Rock Johnson could dance. Take that, Dave Bautista. But we also know that he can act, thanks to Faster and thanks to this movie. But I will say that Richard Kelly specifically picked out people that he thought hadn't been shown their true potential, and he wanted to bring that out. So that's why there's a lot of comedians and like they're everyone's kind of playing against type. Like Sarah Michelle Gellar plays a porn star. Dwayne the Rock Johnson plays an action star. He's the closest, but he also we'll get into it. Um, Bai Ling plays a scientist, although kind of she still plays Bai
Yeah.
Ling. Justin Timberlake plays like a hardcore soldier, and then like Cherry O'Terry and Amy Fowler play like, or Amy Poehler, they play like revolutionary terrorists.
Hmm.
Anyway, so
yeah.
everyone's going against type, which is pretty cool. But Josh, oh, he already told us what this movie's about. William, what do you think? What did you think about this película?
Well, I mean, it's extremely huge and confusing, I think, by design. And it definitely goes into all the things that we just said, all the different subjects of life. But there's also a lot of sci-fi stuff going on, like time rifts and rips in just our dimensional walls.
Mm-hmm.
And
Richard
I
Kelly
think that
staple.
Danger
yeah,
serum,
yeah,
I think.
it's kind of like, I don't know. It's a really interesting movie. It's a kind of a comedy, but it's like not really about the laughs necessarily. Um, I don't know. Watching Donnie Darko, you kind of know this guy's style, and this movie is still his style, but not dark at all. It's kind of a departure. But there's moments of like just pure brilliance in it that like
Yeah.
kind of like come out of nowhere. And I think with like all these kind of like Synecdoche, New York is another kind of example that's like this movie that's just sort of about everything. It's kind of hard to keep track of what's going on, so you just kind of have to give it the benefit of the doubt and kind of like go with the flow. And I don't know, was it profound? Potentially. Am I
I think
sure what I took away from this movie? I don't know. It might require multiple viewings. And the last time I saw this, I was at your house probably in like 2012, and I
Yeah.
was like really high, most likely.
Yeah. The
So
best
I
way
don't
to
know.
answer it.
It's a wild ass movie. It's an experience kind of thing, and I think it's hard to talk about it without having just a discussion. So it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to just like wrap up your thoughts in just like 3 minutes that I'm
I
going on now.
here's what I think. If your teacher is in Oregon and he's wearing a sweater and he tells you to write an essay on the Great Gatsby, you start the first line and be like, "That book's lame. Let me tell you what another thing that covers the exact same ideals about the American dream, but in a way smarter and better way. It's called Southland Tales." Okay, that's what you and then you write the report about that and you'll get an A triple plus. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, but anyway, so like, yeah, I think we can just discuss it because it's hard to kind of talk about it by itself. It
it's
has
almost like,
spoilers. It's almost
yeah,
impossible not to spoil it because everything's all over the
it's
place.
so,
Mhm.
it's okay. And we should at least explain, because, someone's going to blind click on this having never seen the movie. Um, it really does kind of set the tone really early on, because the first 20 minutes are nothing but exposition.
Well,
Like,
and one of the
Hmm.
things I wanted to say is remember last week when we were talking about Chappie, and I mentioned how good Neil Blomkamp is about like giving you exposition. Like he gives you an exposition dump, but you're kind of enjoying yourself. This is the opposite of that.
yeah, this
Because
is
Yeah.
like, hey, it starts off and it's giving you an exposition dump and it's trying to do the RoboCop Chappie. This is a
it's
news
the
story.
propaganda news
Hmm.
story,
Yeah, but
slightly
then halfway
confusing.
through, it just starts showing you clips from the graphic novel that he wrote
Yeah.
about the first two, and then you're like, okay, well, they didn't have the budget, so I like suspension of disbelief or anything. But then it just starts telling you like very intimate details about these people's lives that if the news knew, there wouldn't be a story because they're like everyone's looking for the Rock's character, and then like in the opening, they're like, oh, and he's here. And it's like, wait, does the news know where he? Like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Also, The Rock plays a character named Boxer
Boxer
Santeros, and
Santeros.
that's
Hmm.
his
Yeah.
actor's name, and his character's name in the movie that he's researching is Jericho Kane, who's
Yeah.
the real character. Isn't that the name of Arnold in
In
End of
End of
Days?
Days, I believe so. I believe
Oh,
that is
you might be
true.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
go
and
check out that.
Yeah.
I was
This
thinking
is
of
the
Sutter Kane from
In the Mouth of
In the
Madness.
Mouth of Madness. Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
uh
Hmm.
Both
this is an all
apocalyptic
around. Like it's
films
taken all
as
of our
well.
things, all of our reviews so far, and it's bringing them together like Endgame.
Yeah,
I will
it,
say,
Yeah.
like, okay, so before we get into real spoilers, I do want to kind of break down the plot. So, Boxer Santeros is a famous actor. They think he might cause the end of the world, and he went to something, and he ended up like we find out this later, but he disappeared. They found him 3 days later. They don't know where he was, so everyone's kind of trying to track him down.
they
He
just know
doesn't,
he was in the desert. That's all they
yeah,
Hmm.
know.
and he
He
didn't
walked out of the
have
desert.
he doesn't have his memory, but he kind of does. Sometimes he forgets. There's stuff there. You're never sure if he's intentionally forgetting this stuff or he really doesn't remember. But like he's also married to a state senator, and then it's like, okay, so Clinton is gonna lose, and this like fascist guy is gonna start. I was like, oh my god, Richard Kelly, you picked it. Um,
Yeah.
and so The Rock is the first daughter's or potential first daughter's husband, and so everyone wants to find him because they think that they can get to political things through The Rock. But The Rock is with Sarah Michelle Gellar, who's Krista Kapowski, who's a porn star, and they've written a script about the events of the movie. And so they're trying to do research for that movie. And also, there's a third organization that's trying to murder them. And then also, the end of the world prophecy may be true. And then
Hmm.
also, in this giant world, everyone's constantly being monitored, kind of like our world.
Yeah.
But they also have machine guns. So Justin Timberlake plays a sniper. And even though he's the narrator, he barely interacts with anyone.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he's almost an unreliable narrator, because when he's narrating, he knows what's happening, but when he's in the film, he mostly doesn't. So
Yeah.
it's almost like a
Yeah.
post
And
hoc.
when he's in the film, his only goal is to murder people and do drugs.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
literally because the whole thing is kind of this like conceit is that he was in like Fallujah when like
Mhm.
bad things happened. It was a bunch. It
Right.
was like a huge friendly fire incident, and so he's like messed up and he's like taking drugs, but he's also part of a soldier group smuggling drugs into the country, including a drug called fluid karma,
Fluid
which
karma.
Right.
is
Fluid
Yeah.
karma. We
Which
love
which
makes
that.
is
you
like
psychic.
yeah, it
Make you see the
Sometimes.
essentially
future.
makes you psychic, and it does a lot of things. But yeah,
Feels
again,
good.
It
he is
makes you
not
sing the Killers in
he's
its
weirdly
entirety.
not a big part of the movie, despite being in a way it is kind of the Great Gatsby, where he's like a Nick Carraway. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
seeing this, but not interacting with any of it, you know,
Right.
Well, and
because it is about the Rock. Yeah.
one of the things I really do like about this movie, because like there's a character, so everyone's watching everyone, and so they keep cutting to this kind of call center area where like your whole job is just watching this camera. Like you could be
Hmm.
watching the camera facing Target parking lot B, and that's literally all you're doing all day, just to see if anyone's breaking the law.
Yeah.
And it's supposedly in reaction to El Paso getting nuked. What? That's where I'm from. Um, and so like you keep cutting to this, but there's this girl who's watching The Rock, and she's like become obsessed with The Rock, and she thinks that she's like living his life with him. So she thinks that she's his girlfriend, and like she's just watching him, and she comes out in the movie, and we'll talk about her when she gets there, but like she's not really connected to anything. She's not connect I mean, she's barely connected to the surveillance thing just because she works there, but she's not connected to any of the groups or their interest in any way. She just wants to fuck The Rock. We're at
Hmm.
13 minutes, I can say that word. And so much of the movie feels like this, and it oddly feels very realistic, where almost every character has their own agenda that's sometimes just completely devoid from everyone else's agenda, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that that kind of it makes it very confusing to follow, but it also to me makes it super interesting because like you never really like so there's that scene like they find The Rock, he meets Sean William Scott, who plays a guy who's gonna pretend to be a cop
He's pretending to be a cop because his
for the
twin brother,
Marxists.
quote unquote, is a cop.
Yeah,
And he's
Who's
taking
also in
his
Fallujah.
brother's uniform,
to
and
pretend to be a racist cop.
to pretend to be a racist cop to get this famous actor Boxer Santeros on film during like a racist killing of like a couple, but then a real cop shows up to
Well, see,
really
and
be.
then John Lovitz is just there, kind of hanging out. So when they get the call, which is a false flag, they're like Amy Poehler and some guy are like arguing, like they're pretending to argue, and they're supposed to like shoot them with blanks, and then they're supposed to like pretend to be dead so that they can create this huge scandal with Boxer Santeros, who again is directed to the presidential candidate. And so they get there, and then also they get that there's like this really funny part where Sean William Scott like he has to be racist, and The Rock is
Yeah.
like, "Oh, is there anything you worry about?" And then Sean William Scott just says the N word,
Yeah.
and
They're everywhere.
it makes no sense in
It's
context, but
it's
it's
very
just
He's
like
supposed to be a
jarring.
racist cop. They told him to
he's
be a
supposed to
racist
be
cop.
racist, so he just does it. Like it's just so funny to hear. Like it makes no sense. But anyway, so they get to the call, and John Lovitz is there, and they're like, "Oh, I think I can handle this," and he's like, "Nah, I'll give you backup." And so he shows up, and then like Amy Poehler, and they're just like fake arguing, and then John Lovitz just shoots them, and like she shoots the guy, and then Amy Poehler is a poet, also revolutionary. What is she on Twitter? Um, and she says like this poem, and she's like, "My name is Magic Time" or something, and then
Dream.
my name is Dream, yeah, and then John Lewis shoots her, and he goes, "Dream over," and then
Yeah.
like he just tells them both of them, he goes, "Hey guys, get the fuck out of here," and so then
Yeah.
they just run away, and that's just how that part of the story ends.
Right. And when they run away from each other, it starts playing like this movie has a great soundtrack.
Oh
I
yeah,
Yeah,
think it
Wave
starts
of
playing like Wave of
Mutilation
Mutilation and
by the
like
it does.
Pixies.
and it's like it's a really important scene you find out later, like these two guys like look at each other and then all of a sudden the world gets like kind of hate like whenever you take fluid karma, the world turns into like these like weird jelly block looking things.
Mm.
And so The Rock and Sean William Scott are like running away and they're on this like sidewalk and they look at each other and it's like this they look at each other like really weirdly and then they run away from each other. And as they're running away, the world gets like foggy, kind of like Apocalypse Now style. And then it gets like jelly blocky, and you're like, "What the fuck is going on?" And that kind of shit happens a lot, where you can tell this movie is like constantly setting stuff up, and it's like constantly leaving all these like breadcrumbs, but you don't really know why that happens until the very end of the movie.
Right,
So
right.
it's like this movie totally rewards multiple viewings,
Yeah,
and
it's
I think
very
that's like
it,
what's
Yeah.
hard about it.
that's also why though in a weird way it's like frustrating. And don't get me, this is a great movie, but like it kind of like you were saying where it's like, oh, it's like this like 30 different characters and a lot of them just have their own agenda that's not connected to anything. And it's like, so when you're rewatching it, you know, like kind of the plot and you're like, okay, I know that this is because like The Rock is this and then this is Sean
Hmm.
William Scott, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, and these like Amy Poehler's this poet stuff, this doesn't really go anywhere, but in real life that's kind of what would happen. You just get
Right.
caught up in
Yeah.
some nonsense that
Well, and
Hmm.
just wait,
And
kind of
th-
fucks with you.
like you
Right.
meet Kevin Smith pretty early in the film, but he doesn't matter to the story until almost the last scene of the
Yeah, I
movie.
think you see just a shot of him, and then he like speaks like 10 minutes before the end of the film.
No, no, no.
I'm like,
He
Yeah.
talks because
What does he say?
he talks to the team. Like they go and introduce themselves and they meet each other.
oh, the five scientists or
Yeah, the
whatever.
five scientist guys.
Oh, oh. Did we go
And then
into the scientist? Did we talk about that
We
yet?
did.
That's
we
pretty
had
I
major.
forgot that Wallace Shawn was the villain of this
Yeah.
movie, and even though he's in most of it, that's how much the
it's
plot
I
also
know.
funny.
kind of
Like
doesn't
so
matter.
throughout this movie, people are telling Boxer Santeros and kind of anyone they say, so this is how the world ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper.
Whimper. Yeah.
But here's the thing: the beginning of this movie starts with like everything is the catalyst of this film is two nuclear blasts in
Hmm.
Texas against El Paso and Plano, and it's like or Abilene. Is it Abilene?
Abilene. Yeah, I think
Abilene.
it's
Abilene.
Abilene.
And it's like that's not a whimper. That's a real
Yeah.
bad thing. Like two nuclear bombs. That
Well, that
changed
just
the
Not
course
started
of
a
it.
history last
wait.
time. You know.
Are you sure
Yeah.
it's Abilene, or is it just that Justin Timberlake's character is named Pilot Abilene?
I think I just read on Wikipedia that was Abilene, but I
I
might
think
be
it
Okay,
wrong.
was
so
Abilene. You don't
Yeah.
know, like I remember it in the comic book. It's kind of important, but in the movie,
Yeah, it
they
doesn't matter.
barely like they show you like this thing on the size
it's
of
just
Texas.
it's
So I
it's
know
really
El Paso because I'm from El Paso, but the other one's just up there. I don't know where the fuck that
Yeah.
is.
this is
But yeah,
like
so we're also following these scientists around, and William, do you want to talk about their
Yeah,
makeup?
because that's kind of like their makeup. Oh yeah, their makeup is like kind of like cyberpunk modern. Like
Yeah,
this is kind of a cyberpunky sort of film in a
it
weird way.
definitely is. Yeah.
But there's these scientists that have just that they've somehow figured out how to use the perpetual motion of the ocean or like those principles to create this like energy that will like run the world for forever. But what we don't know is that in the background it's also kind of like causing rips in the space-time continuum. But when they make their power or somehow with their machine they create this fluid called the fluid karma. And so it's like Wallace Shawn, the scientist who's making fluid karma, the drug that we mentioned earlier, is also in major cahoots with this raging hard-on senator fascist guy who wants to become the president, whose wife is the leader of US Ident, which is the company that's watching everybody. So
Yeah.
we have free karma in bed with the senator whose wife is watching the entire world, and they're the ones that are all after Jericho Kane. So it's like that's kind of what's happening at the top level of everything. Like all the characters on the ground are connected too, but they're all kind of like free karma, fluid karma is kind of like the gel that holds every single person together in a way.
Right.
Because that's what Justin Timberlake was messing with and like overseas in the war, and everyone takes fluid karma throughout the movie,
Right.
and so that adds like another layer of non-spoiler to things too. It's like that's what's so confusing about this movie is that like everything is not connected but also very connected, just like how life is in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wild. Fluid karma is a major part of the movie for
And then
sure.
like, there's like we could not talk about Cherry O'Terry and like
Hmm.
those two that lesbian couple,
The
and like
Marxists.
you don't really lose anything from the story, but they're in so much of the movie. Like there's so much going
Yeah.
on that like because Cherry Terry plays one of the Marxist people, and then oh, and John Lovitz is one too, and so I guess they
like
decided
I think
that they were
Yeah, he
gonna
was a plant.
murder.
Yeah,
Yeah,
John Lovitz was a
yeah,
plant.
but he was like because at first it's Sarah Michelle Gellar's in this, by the way. We haven't even brought that up.
I know.
She's just like there's 30
She's
characters.
major.
we
It's
Yeah.
brought it
like
up multiple times.
it is kind of funny too because the idea is that like Sherry, like Sarah Michelle Gellar's his girlfriend from when he lost his memory. She helped him write the script, the Dwayne Johnson,
Right.
and the like original scandal that the Marxists are going to do is like, oh, if we film Boxer Santeros with a porn star, it's going to like mess up this politician's chances. Just him like sleeping with his porn star. But
Hmm.
then Sherry O'Terry's like, well, no, we should like have him be part of this like insane cop killing, like racist cop
Yeah.
killing.
Yeah.
That's like real blackmail.
Right.
But the video, it's one of those things where it's like, God, videos like that get released like all the time now, and
I
nobody gives
know.
a shit.
And now
Yeah.
also like they also have a sex tape that they don't really play with, but they should. I don't know. I feel like that'd be the easiest one. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then there's like I don't know, because then you have like on the Venice boardwalk. William, we used to live there. We used to walk around there a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It was cool to
Um,
see all that
Man,
stuff
you
again
were
for
walking
sure.
around there telling guys you're gonna kill yourself if they don't let you suck their dicks.
yeah, that's the
That's
way to
exactly
do
what
it.
you were doing.
Oh, also,
I
I
didn't even
really
stop him.
that's my favorite part because everything about like the Rock. So the Rock is lost, and he's just drinking an entire six pack.
Oh,
Like
one beer
he's
at a time
Yeah.
open,
and not
yeah,
taking it
and he's
off.
like drinking it like this. And then
Yeah.
so the call center lady comes up and she's
Starla.
like,
Yeah.
she tries
Mhm.
to play along with his story, but he doesn't really like, he's not really falling for it. And so she pulls out a gun and she's like, take off your pants. Let me suck your dick. And he's like,
Yeah.
what? And then she like puts a gun to her head, which I don't think I could do that symbol on YouTube. And she's like, if you don't let me suck your dick, I'm gonna kill myself. And so
Yeah.
The Rock, because every time The Rock is scared, he turns into his character from the movie
His
that he's
actual
writing.
film persona.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he does like this like little weird hand thing.
Yeah,
Well,
he's
see,
like
this is
super
him when he's
fidgety
nervous,
until he becomes the
Yeah.
character.
but then he becomes
Yeah.
his character and he goes, Jericho Kane is gonna make all your dreams come true. And if
I didn't realize that was a transition. I didn't notice. I didn't know that's what
oh
was going
yeah,
on. Oh, okay. I was
and
like,
so
that makes so much more sense now.
I don't know how many times that we've said Jericho Kane can turn your wish come true, can make your wish comes true, but that definitely became saying in this
Part
house.
of the vernacular, yeah.
Yeah.
There's also like this movie's fucking crazy. I don't even know. Like, it actually starts with like part 4 at the beginning,
Yes.
Yeah.
and
Again,
then
like Star Wars.
a
Mhm.
ways through when the Rock finally meets the scientists, it's part 4, temptation awaits, and then when he meets the scientists about an hour in, it's like part 5, memory gospel, and then near the very end it's finally part 6, so you're like, what's going on? Like, is he trying to do a Star Wars thing? But no, because it's all parts of one movie, not
Mhm.
like
What is going
separate
on?
films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
He
and
really was
also
like a
okay,
madman for
so
this.
I know.
I
For
read
real.
the comic book because I really like this
You're
movie,
the
and I
only
can
one, so you'll
tell
have to
you
fill us in.
I don't think even Richard Kelly
do
read it. He was
do
like,
not read the comic books because they bad and they kind of ruin the movie. Um, one of the like the only thing you really get from the comic books, it's a lot of like because they can't spoil stuff because then the sixth part gonna get spoiled, but you already know, so that like it's annoying. Um, well, the only thing that matters is that they say at the end the true religion is going to be revealed, and then we'll talk about that in a little bit. Um, but yeah, I think like one of the things I admire about this movie is that you have like you have a million, especially now, you have a million Rise of Skywalkers, where it's like, oh man, we really took a risk. Let's pull it back a little bit. Like let's not do this, or like you look at a lot of the second features from these directors who hit a real big, and they kind of like they get to the point where they get scared and they kind of like jump back or they play it safe. And
sure.
again, much like Chappie, fucking Richard Kelly like did Donnie Darko, it became a huge hit. And it was kind of like it was one of those indie movies that broke out into the mainstream. Like everyone wanted to watch Donnie
Yeah.
Darko.
That's like one of the most famous movies ever now.
Yeah, kind of like I think of like My Big Fat Greek Wedding as another one, like Pulp Fiction,
Sure.
like just these movies that
Mhm.
break out in a weird way. And
Yeah.
so everyone was looking forward to this, and like he could have done like The Box or kind of his other movies after this kind of are more normal, but just the fact that he took all that clout and made the weirdest fucking movie of all time
Yeah. A
is
dystopian comedy.
yeah, like an American satire, dystopian comedy, love story is such a weird pitch, and I don't know why they said yes, but I'm very glad that whoever did this.
Yeah.
It's funny you
Yeah,
say
once you start watching it, you can see his handprints all over it.
Oh
his
my
Like
other
what Ian
god.
said.
movies, because he's only made The Box after this, and I don't think
Yeah,
they'd let him
Oh.
yeah.
make a movie again.
Yeah,
Because
he was like done.
he was cast out of heaven for Southland Tales, and then
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
He
it
was
was
cast into the future much like Maxo Santeros.
Yeah.
Um I think like, but yeah, I think okay. So guys, it's been about 30 minutes. Go watch this movie. We've kind of explained a lot of some of the stuff. Hopefully, if you've seen it, you've got it, and maybe go watch it again because we're about to spoil the shit out of it.
Hmm.
So then like they capture Boxer Santeros because the dick sucking scene is actually an important. It's like sets up the climax. Um, so they kidnap Boxer and then they take him back finally to the president, Mandy Moore. Mandy Moore plays the president's daughter, and I gotta say he was right about giving these actors these random roles. And I think like I mean Mandy Moore was kind of different because she was kind of going for these roles, but she plays like a bimbo essentially,
Yeah.
and it's like really cool to see Mandy Moore like do such a good job at such an out of the random roles, you know. But so yeah, they take him back to the dock, like the place, and they're like, oh, they go on a ship. There's like because it's also
It's
the
like
end of the
it's a
year.
zeppelin. It's like
Yeah.
the
It's a new
Or
Zeppelin.
yeah.
And so they're like there, and then Sean William Scott meets Sean William Scott, and so
No, this
then
is
oh yeah, go
this
ahead.
is the crazy part because I mean, obviously, at the very beginning of the movie, you knew that him having a twin brother was fake. Like that's just too great, like too much of a throwaway to be real. And
Mhm.
then Sean William Scott like realizes like I have to find my brother, halfway through. And he literally just
Right.
happens upon this random drug dealer whose only other scene is just the scene where he's buying drugs from Justin Timberlake. and
Yeah.
and he's
yeah,
gonna kill
with weed.
himself because his life's bad. He's about to be drafted. He's just like, I
Yeah.
just, my life's and he just is like, stop, give me the gun. And they just become friends. And that guy is
Mhm.
an important character for the rest of the movie because he's like
Yeah. Yeah.
driving Sean William Scott to like find his brother who's been kidnapped by Christopher Lambert in an ice cream truck.
Who's also a weapons
A
dealer.
weapons dealer. We didn't even
Yeah.
cover that. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ice cream truck is crashed. The Marxists start the revolution, and then finally the two Sean William Scotts meet and then like grab each other's
And that's
hands.
when we find out. So then they take the Rock to meet Kevin Smith, and Kevin Smith is like, "Take a look in this box." And so he opens the box and he sees a body of himself there, who's been dead and blown up. Because when they found him in the desert, they found him next to a blown up car, and apparently there was someone in that car, and that's when he finds out that that was him. And then they tell him, "Oh, you committed suicide. This is what happened, or your brother committed suicide." And then he realizes that it couldn't have happened that way, and the way he realizes it is because Boxer Santeros, he's a pimp,
Hmm.
and pimps don't commit suicide, and that's the explanation that we're given,
Hmm.
and that's how everything connects together with the movie. And so then you find out that it's not. So apparently they went into a time portal, and
Hmm.
two of them came out, one from the past and one from the
In
future.
90 minutes into the future.
90 minutes. And so this boxer is the future one. That's why he's even cooler than the other one, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that whole story, the script has been what's been happening to them. And the same thing happened to the Sean William Scotts. So when they link up, you're never supposed to touch you like it, they create an anomaly that shouldn't exist. And so if they don't let go, they're going to destroy the entire existence.
Well, allegedly, we don't know. They do say
Allegedly.
that we don't know what's going to happen, but we do know that there was a Messiah character in the script that The Rock is writing,
Mhm.
and there's a little baby that doesn't have bowel movements, and we know that Sean William Scott's character also does not have
Has
bowel
not gone to the
movements.
bathroom in 6 days.
6 days.
Yeah.
And I
So then
think
they're
it's
holding
implied
hands.
that
Yeah.
he's never gonna go to the bathroom because he shouldn't exist in our timeline.
Right.
And then so then that weed guy who was just driving around, he
Yeah.
takes the missile
Oh
and
yeah,
he
because when
shoots.
they shake hands, it causes the ice cream truck to
To
levitate
float.
into
Yeah.
Yeah.
into the air. So yeah, the weed
If it
dealer,
sounds like we're just bringing this up like randomly, that's how the movie's presented.
he
Yeah.
happened to be on top of it at the time, so he's floating on top of this that the two Sean William Scotts are in, and he has like an RPG because it was a weapons dealer's ice cream truck. Yeah, and he just blows up the Zeppelin
Yeah.
with it, and then he like does the
And
Christ
so
pose
while
and
he
just
shoots it,
falls back
Yeah.
to Earth.
Well, he shoots it with the Zeppelin, and then but here's a weird thing in the movie. So like earlier, Baxo Santeros has a vision that this is gonna happen. So he's trying to get everyone to the back. Well, he doesn't know what's gonna happen, but he knows something bad's gonna happen at the front of the Zeppelin. So he's trying to get everyone to go to the back of the Zeppelin, which I don't know if that would work, but whatever. But
No, there's
then
no way.
the scientists are like, no, stay at the front. And they're like fighting him. They're like, no, 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 you got to stay at the front. And it's like, did they also know what was going to
It's not
happen?
totally clear what
Yeah.
their agenda was, and I think that's kind of they had their own thing. They were just trying to like
And
with the government or something.
speaking of own things, while all this is happening, you're asking like, oh, what is Boxer Santeros, the lead character, doing? He's dancing with the porn star and his wife to Moby. And then they just dance until they blow up. And right before they blow up, like he puts his hands out, and on the back of his shirt in blood, you see
Yeah.
the imprint of Jesus. Because
Mhm.
again, in the comic book, they say that the true religion will be revealed. And for some reason, he decided it was
Oh.
Christianity. Which, like, this movie is not about Christianity, like, even a
No.
little bit. If anything, it's more about, like, Buddhism and shit. So
Yeah.
it's funny that at the end he's like, nah, it's not. You know?
Yeah.
It just he probably looked cool. I mean, I say the drug dealer does the Christ pose at the end. About 5 people do the Christ pose at the end, including Boxer as the Jesus is coming off his back.
Yeah.
So the movie is very
And I like that, like,
very symbolic.
everyone is just going for it. Like, nobody looks, like, I've heard that apparently Dakota Johnson is, like, not even trying in Madam Web. But that's not the case with this one. Like, everyone is really bringing their A game.
Yeah,
And
everyone's
I think
excited.
that
Everyone's on
helps.
fire.
Yeah. I think that makes it feel like
Yeah,
you feel like it's part of something
it's
better.
funny. I was reading about this movie, and they're talking to like Wallace Shawn, and he's like, you know what? I read it and I didn't understand the script, but Richard Kelly says he wrote this part for me. And I was so flattered. I was like, I'm in. It's just like Richard Kelly's so passionate that it like draws
Mhm.
these people to like go hard.
It's also
Right,
funny
right.
that it's like, Richard Kelly, why would you say this in an interview that I'm gonna read? or Wallace Shaw,
Wallace
like,
Shawn,
I'm
yeah.
gonna
Yeah,
read
yeah.
this.
It's probably after the movie had been out and was a huge flop. I don't
Mhm.
think it made $1 million.
Well, and it's funny because
Yeah.
it sold for like $8 million at Cannes, and then Richard Kelly put another $1 million in. Like, he made Sony put another $1 million into it to finish the special effects, which includes a car fucking another car
Oh
for
yeah.
Oh
just to
yeah,
show
no,
like, oh
really.
Yeah.
yeah, we use
It's
the
a
water.
RoboCop style commercial.
Yeah.
You know what I will say about this movie, because this movie is great, but
Mhm.
narratively it is kind of intentionally a huge mess, and
Yeah.
you almost
Incomprehensible.
kind of get the hints of like I don't know. We've probably talked about Donnie Darko on here before at least once, but like Donnie Darko, great film, but if you watch Donnie Darko, the director's cut, you're like, ooh, this is bad because he wants to explain all the science of Donnie Darko.
Right.
And he kind of does that in this one where he'll have like a lot of times it'll do like the cut back to the kind of media propaganda thing for like 5 minutes to just like give you exposition. And it's like, Richard Kelly, no one cares about this but you. If you want to just take this out and
Oh.
like have us piece it together between scenes, like
Right.
this is a vibes movie. Don't explain too much.
Totally.
And I
Yeah.
almost feel like that would be like a stronger film, and it would still be like just
Yeah.
totally all over the place, but in a funner way than when you can really tell he's like, no, don't you understand like the U.S. Senate race? It's like, I don't, and I don't care, Richard Kelly. Just
Yeah. Yeah.
let me
Richard
piece it
Kelly is
together.
like he's like a Star Trek fan trying to make but he keeps making Star Wars movies, like he keeps making like hangout vibe movies, but he's always trying to over explain how they make sense, and it's like, nah, man, I don't need to
Yeah.
know how the
The
bunny
vagueness is
knows
good.
that
Yeah.
Donnie's gonna
That's why,
die.
like,
Just have him there.
you could
Mhm.
totally tell, like, yeah, when you watch the Donnie Darko directors, because it's like, oh, he was so annoyed that no one understood this. They just thought it looked cool. So
Yeah.
he's like, you're
Right.
gonna understand it,
Trust
bitch.
me.
And it's like he
Yeah.
tries to do
And I
both
was
in this
like,
movie.
hey
And it's
man,
like,
I
just do the
wanna
Donnie
not
Darko thing. Just have it
understand.
vibe.
Right. Yeah,
It's
keep
like,
it
hey,
vague.
buddy, we're here for Tears for Fears.
This
Yeah.
it's funny. This movie's so good. It did get me to finally watch The Box earlier today, and
Oh yeah.
not good, but that
It's
movie.
not the box. I mean, it's fine. It's just
It's
It's
all
kind
right.
of
it's more
just,
like
just right.
you want it to be amazing like this, but no, that movie
Yeah.
starts with like a military report of how the box guy works, and it's like, oh, he can't help himself. He
Yeah.
needs you to know the
He's a
He
science.
wants you
professor of
to
his own
understand
films.
everything. And I do like how it's like, you know what he kind of, you know what? I bet you he could write a pretty good Ghostbusters movie because he kind of feels like the same psychoticness that like,
I
uh,
mean, they've already tried and failed like 4 times, so why not give it to it?
Yeah.
but no, he feels
A
like
great
that
track
same
record.
craziness, like where if you heard about the original version of Ghostbusters, like Dan Aykroyd like explained how the traps
Oh,
work and how the
right, like how
ghosts
he
like
believes in
how
all of that. Yeah,
ectoplasm works, and then like Bill
right,
Murray or Howard Ramis like looked at it and they're like, you got to get all that out of there, bro. Like nobody cares, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then like, but it would how funny would it have been if he had left all that stuff in? So like in between the jokes about Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and the Big Twinkie, they're just over explaining how ghosts work.
Right.
And
see
like you
that's
think like,
kind of this movie a
yeah,
little
how would
bit
that
though.
Yeah.
work? It's
Yeah.
like, well, watch this movie because that's how. Like you're not gonna like
Yeah.
it,
And I
but
mean,
I
such a
am.
crazy plot. Like, I mean, he was probably like doing that to like figure out himself too, and to like kind of keep it
Yeah.
in order. And he's just like, he
Yeah,
wants
like
us
but
to
he
have the same experience that he has, like
right, like
reading
I
it.
think to him understanding it's the interesting part, but to the audience it's like
Hmm.
no, just like seeing you do this 5 minute dance scene is the interesting part, you
Right.
know.
Show me your
Piling
world.
dancing through the Zeppelin for 5 minutes straight to
And
no
Yeah.
end, you know.
I think
Hmm.
that's why. Oh, sorry. I think that's why I didn't like the box as much. Not, I mean, the box is serviceable, but it's like,
It's more
man,
like there's nothing
I forgot
fun
all
in the
about the box.
box.
yeah. When you take two big
Yeah.
swings and then you just like hit a grounder,
It's
you
probably
know,
all they
like
would give him money for. They're like, you
I
gotta do this
know.
fucking regular
It,
ass movie,
it was
dude.
definitely like the like, hey, you have to do this. You should have done a slasher film, buddy. That would have gotten you back
It
on
is
the good list.
That'd be
it's
cool.
interesting. I do wonder, like, kind of, because obviously, like, the studios gave up on M Night, and he just kept cranking them out. But Richard Kelly's like, no, I'm done. So it's like I
Yeah.
do
I
wonder kind of what the difference is.
I think about Richard Kelly and also Duncan Jones, who made Moon and Source Code. And you realize
Yeah.
like M. Night Shyamalan was able to do that because he went from like Signs
Hmm.
to like The Lady in the Water and like Last Airbender, which are these super huge spectacles. But then to work his way back, he made The Visit, which cost like $20. You know, it was like
Right.
four
A good
actors
movie.
in a cabin, you know.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that Duncan Jones or Richard Kelly has it in them to make like a not
To
three
do
fifty
the
million
I'm
dollar
Yeah.
budget
no one's
movie.
has craft services.
Yeah.
We're bringing
Like I
sandwiches to
think the
set.
visit was
Yeah,
Right.
$2 million. You know, like
Yeah. It was
right,
like
right.
indie as fuck.
yeah, like Richard Kelly's not making. He's not even coming out of his trailer for $2 million.
I know. I
He's
read on Wikipedia that he's trying to like turn it into like a TV show now, like Southland Tales. Like he's
he's
trying to
not
make
even
like
gonna.
a franchise out of it.
I think as well. I think I don't think it would work as a TV show, but I would like to watch it as a TV
I
show.
I
do
mean, I
almost
think it
think
could work
like
pretty well.
I could see it, or like, because I'm sure you can tell. I mean, as long and kind of overstuffed as this movie is, you can even see where he cut stuff, because at the very end of the
Yeah.
movie it cuts to Justin Timberlake partying and Janine
Yeah.
Garofalo's with
Hmm.
him, and you're like, oh, and then her name's like General something. You're like, oh, she clearly had a bunch of
Yeah.
scenes
Right. Right.
that were just cut, you know.
Absolutely.
So it's like I do
Or
wonder if
like
was his original cut 5 hours long or what.
characters
It
will
must have
just
been.
like they will change allegiances in the like between scenes, and you're like, wait, I thought he was working for that guy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
They're like, nah, they're like, there's like some bums they run into, and then later they're just working for Will Sasso, and it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah. Will Sasso is
Oh. Oh yeah.
like
Yeah.
does like a triple cross at like one
yeah.
point.
Will
Hmm.
Sasso is like the guy from The Big Lebowski who's like laughing with Julianne Moore, except he's in every scene and he's part of every alliance, and you're like, what is
Yeah.
happening?
He has a whole other movie happening that you just don't
Yeah.
see. He's
And
in
that
like
you
5 scenes.
and that you don't care about.
That right.
Yeah.
That's I
Yeah.
guess it's almost like you could like see that's what's almost frustrating about this is like you could almost see the 4 hour cut where they do everything, or like under 2 hour cut where they cut out about like 8 characters and just
Right.
like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
have like The Rock and Sean William Scott, but it's almost charming how hard he went for it with
No,
this.
I love
I
that he
know that's
went
the big
for
part.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
no, it's so ambitious, and
Hmm.
and you
I
get
almost
you,
feel like it would work better now than it did in 2006. People weren't ready for his message, much
well,
like the
I mean,
Christ figure
honestly,
he
yeah,
is.
and you
yeah,
guys know that I hate bringing up my films that are available on Tubi. But it does kind of
The
feel
empty
like when I did
space.
the empty
What?
space,
right.
it was a little bit
Very
of
similar
like
to Southland
there
Tales.
was a lot of there was just a lot of like, oh, should you go this hard? Because like the empty space is a weird movie, it's like a lot of weird stuff in there. Especially when
Yeah,
you compare like zombies are kind of weird, but not really. Like there's such a staple where like cosmic beings, that's not that. And so like you kind
Right.
of you have to answer that question yourself, like how far. And I did the same thing that Richard did, and we both got booed. But where I was like, nah, man, let's just go for it because if it works, it's gonna work, and if it doesn't, well, at least I told the story I wanted to tell.
yeah,
And I
totally.
don't know, but that's the thing. I don't know if Richard Kelly told the story he wants to tell, or if he thinks there's more to it.
I almost don't think this movie's so big that it's like not possible to tell. Like I think in his
Right.
mind he's like it's gonna be this big and he's like a one person can't do this. This is like
Right.
this would have to be like 7 seasons of TV.
Yeah,
It's
Right.
funny though you say because I would say the empty space is closer to normal Donnie Darko. It's not like in the empty space it stops to explain how like cosmic magic works
You
every
know what?
10
You're right, guy.
minutes.
If you like Southland Tales or Donnie Darko
That's
or
true.
The Godfather or any movie ever, watch The Empty Space on Tubi. I'm sure you'll have an opinion about it. Also, it really looks nice. Like I just love the way this movie looks. It's like glossy almost.
yeah. It feels like a dream. It feels like a produced
Yeah.
script that's
Like
like a movie at the same time.
the
Feels like a
clouds are like
dream.
turquoise, like it's
Hmm.
like or teal. It's like
It's
okay.
also, I mean, it's almost like nightmarish. Like there's, because I mean,
Yeah.
they do kind of go hard in the dystopia stuff where it's like literally gun-mounted soldiers on every other rooftop just waiting to
Right.
like
Yeah.
kill
Well,
people.
like, and then I
Hmm.
think about like again, just thinking about how he went for it. Like, okay, so they're in the blimp. Everything's happening in the blimp. That's where all the characters are converging, and everything's happening in the ice cream truck that's in the middle of the air. And like Sean William Scott was going towards the blimp anyway, so you didn't need there to be a real reason for them to be there. But for no reason at all, they're just going to war on the streets of LA
Hmm.
and like they're just shooting at each other, but like it doesn't really matter to the plot at all, and it doesn't like affect
Yeah.
anything. So it's just kind of like, yeah, I
I don't
mean
even know
that's.
who was shooting. I don't even know who was involved in that shootout.
It's
Like
Well, I
that.
know
All of
the
a sudden, just
like
Marxists were,
violence
but I don't know who
erupts.
they're
yeah,
shooting
it
at.
was the
Yeah,
Marxists
they're
versus the
there.
cops. But it's
Oh,
like the
Then
Chappie thing where all the robots get turned off. You're like, oh, is this gonna have consequences? Not really. Okay.
no, everyone's dancing. Everyone's dancing while they're shooting. Like no one's worried about any of this stuff
and
happening. Like
I,
the
yeah,
populace is like fine. I don't think they even realize that the end of the world is happening.
Actually,
They're just kind of like,
yeah,
fuck it.
I like that scene because that has a cool scene of one of the Sean William Scotts stumbling out of the ice cream truck with like a magnum, and he's just standing there like popping off like random
Yeah,
police
oh
just as they
yeah,
run by, and I was just like, "Yay!"
yeah, yeah.
Oh, we forgot to mention the Eli Roth cameo, the only good Eli Roth cameo
Yes,
in any film.
yeah. He gets
yeah.
2 seconds of
immediately
him being
murdered.
shot in the face or chest or something like
While
Yeah,
he's taking a shit.
on a toilet. Yeah.
I know Eli Roth.
It's hilarious.
But yeah, I think this movie is quite good. I think it like I think people are eventually going to rediscover it. I do think that it's a lot smarter than people think. I think The
Hmm.
Rock gives one of his best performances, and apparently he's working with the Safdie brothers. So thank you, Rock, for acting again. And I
Thank you,
think like
Black Adam, for not
it's
working, so
it's
he had
just
to be
Yeah.
interesting
interesting again.
to watch these kind of like you can watch like a million Marvel movies and if you like them fine, but like every once in a while you want to find a movie like this that's almost undescribable. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, what's that movie about? It's like, okay, well, sit down, it's gonna take a little while.
Yeah,
Like those type of
it's
movies.
almost hostile
Yeah.
to you as a viewer. It's
Right.
like, no, you
Totally.
figure it out. You're like, fine, I will.
I'll try.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also it's so easy to see like why this movie didn't succeed with audiences, but it's also like Donnie Darko is like such a long shot too.
Yeah.
Like that movie would like wouldn't have been loved. Like we could easily be doing an episode on the forgotten classic Donnie Darko. So
Right.
it's like you can't. I guess it's just really hard to capture that like
And
rarest
to
of
me,
lightning
it's
twice.
almost like with Donnie Darko, it's like it feel like they really capture like like being like a teen and life being bad. They like
Yeah,
capture that.
totally.
This movie almost captures how life feels now, but it came
Yeah,
out,
Right.
like
totally.
15 years ago, and it's like
Hmm.
it was almost like he knew how bad things would get.
Right. He
And
knew the
Right.
level of noise was going to get louder and louder
yeah,
until
just like the
consumers didn't give a shit
overwhelming like
anymore at
social
all.
media and
Yeah.
just media in general
Hmm.
shit would just like ruin everyone's lives, and it
Yeah.
has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Totally.
do like that they he really captured, which again, this is 2006, but he really captures the way that we're always looking at something that's not in front of us. Like we're always looking at our phone or at some kind of like our watch, like just some kind of media at
Yeah.
any point, like there's that, I mean, it's lame, but it's that thing about, oh well, you're not like you're sitting in the subway but you're looking at your phone, you're not even enjoying the moment. And this movie really captures that idea of just like constantly being bombarded with fucking images. and,
Information
and
that you
like
don't even understand.
I think like it's interesting that this guy, like, he has something to say about religion and pornography and the way we treat sex workers, and the way we kind of use each other for personal or political gain. There's
Hmm.
Hollywood in there. There's just like so much in there. And like you don't really get to all of them. But the stuff that you
Yeah.
do get to, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, maybe I don't even agree with what he's saying, but I do like that he's shouting at me. He
Yeah.
really wants me to get what he's saying, and I think that
Hmm.
that makes it very interesting as a film.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I would agree.
guys. Southland Tales, one of our favorites, and thank you for subscribing. Hopefully, you continue to stick around. Hopefully, we get some new subscribers. We're gonna do a couple more of these huge bombs that that might be good. This one we knew was gonna be good. We might be taking a little bit more chances on the next ones because I think we've been doing. It's been too easy on us. But
Yeah.
come back next week. We'll be talking about those movies, and then we will see you on the other side of the time thing. I don't remember what it
The
was.
time
The
rifts,
rift.
The
the fourth
rift.
dimension, you stupid bitch.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
another classic line. Yeah, we'll see you then.